how to develop a competitive analysis for my product to ensure the success of it when I launch it. That's what we're going to walk through today in this little segment, and going through those steps on how to develop that competitive analysis to make sure that your product can withstand the competition, understanding that competition, and ultimately be successful. Listen, if you like the videos that I'm putting together, they're going to dive into a lot of different areas, key areas of the fishing industry. The competitive analysis that we're going to walk through today is just one part of that, a critical part of that, and understanding your new product. So if you like what we're doing and you find it beneficial, do me a favor, just like and subscribe. As we're growing this thing, it's going to continue to help put out more content. If you have questions, if you have things that you want me to cover, hit me up, send a comment, let me know. I'll be happy to shoot a video and provide my feedback that I have for over 18 years of the fishing industry to help answer your questions. So let's dive in. Developing a competitive analysis is really important, and it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money if you really understand what your competition is doing. Before you do that, you want to understand and define your product and your target market. So what are the features and benefits of my product? Understanding what my value proposition is. Your value proposition we'll talk about in another video, and really how to develop your value proposition. But understanding what that value proposition is for your product to your consumer and to your customer is really important. And what market are you intending to go after with your product? Understanding what you ultimately want to do, first and foremost, will start to lay the foundation for you to then be able to go and pick and choose what competition is within those markets. So really defining what your target market is and where you're going from your product. First and foremost, what are those features for your product? What are the benefits that they're going to offer? Who are they going to really target? Before you really start diving in, understanding what you're doing and what that product is going to offer will help you start to identify who the competitions are in that market or in that segment of your business. Once you have your target market and your features and of your product, you really want to start to identify those competitors, right? So research and compile a list of those competitors, of those products, whether they're at the same price point, they're around the same price point of the product that you're developing, or they have the same features and benefits, or they're actually going after that same target audience that you have identified. Really starting that process and listing out what those direct competitors are, based on that first step of your target market and your product features is really going to be that next step, that second step. So defining what your product is, all the features that it has, going into now understanding and defining what that competition is, whether they're brands, they're products, or they are companies that you're going to be up against, and really starting to make a list of what those direct competitors are is going to be a second big step in this process. Now, number 3 is going through and really researching and identifying those competitors and gathering the relevant information of those competitors. So that process is going to take a little bit longer because you may have 3 or 5 competitors. Listen, some competitors are going to compete with you from a marketing perspective. Some are going to compete with you from a product perspective. Some are going to compete with you from a shelf space scenario where you're competing with them not on features, not on pricing, but you're competing with them for shelf space at a retailer or online or through direct consumer. So understanding and gathering what that competition's doing through that research and how they're doing it is another big piece. And we're going to walk through kind of what some of those really big kind of informational gathering pieces here in this next section, but that's going to be another big key to focus on. So those areas that you want to start gathering information on is product features, what are their capabilities, understanding their features and functionalities and their unique kind of selling points of each competitor and their product. So you can identify their strengths. You're going to go through a whole SWOT analysis and, for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we can cover that. And there's plenty of stuff on how to perform a SWOT analysis online. So you can dive into that in your own time after this. But really understanding kind of what those features and those capabilities are from your competition and of each of those competitions. So of competitors. So you might have 3 key competitors, and now you start diving into what are those products, features, and capabilities are. Once you get those capabilities and those features of that product, start diving into their pricing strategies, analyzing their pricing models, right? So how do they go after those? What are those strategies that those competitors employ to gain market share? So determining whether they have discounts, they do bundles or pricing strategies. Do they have BDFs and growth incentives that they offer to either to the customer or to the consumer, right? So they could do mail-in rebates. There's a bunch of different things that your competitors might be doing, and understanding that price strategy piece as you're building this competition, kind of your competitor analysis. And on each side is going to help understand what they're doing from a pricing standpoint. It's not all about, these, my product's at $19.99 and here's all the products and that's similar. That's part of it. But understanding what they might be doing on the back end from a pricing strategy will help you ultimately identify what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. So and give you gaps that you can fill with your product. What's their market presentation and reputation? Right, so they have a good reputation in the industry or in their segment of their market. So again, not every competitor is going to do everything well, and identifying what their reputation is in certain areas, whether that's customer service, whether that's their brand reputation, product reputation, but identifying what that loyalty, if they have a customer loyalty program. Is it negative? Is it positive? But really starting to understand what that market presence is and ultimately their reputation within that market will help kind of start to identify some, again, gaps and areas that you can kind of identify and go after as you're developing and building your product. What's their marketing and their messaging? Do they have a marketing and a messaging story that is unique in the market? So study those marketing channels. You can go and look at their Facebook and their Instagram and their TikTok, all their social media, their websites. How are they getting that marketing message out to their customer? Because if they're your competitor, whether it's in the product space, whether it's in the branding space, you want to understand how they are messaging to their customers. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it's just identifying what they're doing in their messaging and what channels they're actually going after. Are they advertising through print ads? Are they advertising through Facebook? Are they advertising through various social media platforms? How are they messaging or getting their messages across from a marketing standpoint is going to, again, help you understand those gaps and maybe find some areas that you can start to fill in, because they're not doing one area well, or they're doing other areas extremely well, and you might want to avoid those. Their distribution channels. So how are your competitors going to market? What are their distribution channels? Understanding your competitors' distribution channels of their product is going to help you. Is it a direct to consumer channels? Is it just all online? Do they have partnerships with distributors? And those partnerships are 20, 30 years old. And they have those relationships with those distribution channels. What are those distribution channels that your competitors are using is going to help you identify, again, It's all about identifying those gaps and figuring out where you can fill in. But again, understanding that distribution channel and how your competitors are distributing their product and getting it from the supply chain out through and to consumers is important to understand. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the customer feedbacks and reviews. Study your competitors' reviews. Each competitor is going to have testimonials. They're going to have feedback. There's going to be war stories on their ratings, whether it's on Amazon or through their own channel. Diving in and understanding what the consumer is saying about their product will again help identify some of those areas that you would be able to then use as you develop your strategy. So understand the customer feedbacks and reviews of each of those competitors is going to be really beneficial to help you understand and start to piece together some of those gaps. And we talked a little bit earlier about a SWOT analysis, but absolutely important to understand what those strengths and what those weaknesses are for each of your competitors. What do they do well? Man, they really have a strong social media presence, and it would be hard to go after some of the things that they're doing. But they don't do well with customer service, and there's a lot of feedback with customer service and quality, whatever those areas may be. But understanding the strengths of the weaknesses of each of those competitors is going to again help you fill those gaps with your product or with your services, with your brand. So those are those kind of informational gathered areas that you want to really start to pull together as you're developing that competitor. You've developed that competitor list, and now you're developing that informational all kind of the information about them, the products and features, the pricing, market's presence, and how, and their reputation, their marketing and messaging, their distribution channels, their customer feedbacks and reviews, their strengths and their weaknesses. So pulling that all together by competitor will really start to lay the groundwork and the foundation of where you can start to penetrate the market. So now you've gathered all your competitive analysis, you've gathered all the different areas. Now it's really start to evaluate what that looks like and what that landscape looks like. So there's a tool for you to be able to do that, and I'm gonna bring it up and you'll be able to see. And it's just a spreadsheet to be able to help you identify those areas and a way to kind of pull all that information together so that you can look at it. It's a simple 1 through 5 rating on each of those areas, and it'll give you a visual to really start to dive in and determine if there's gaps and where those gaps may be. So pulling that information together to gain a comprehensive view of that competitive landscape, again, is going to help you show and identify emerging trends, market gaps, opportunities of differentiation for your product or your brand. And so really, once you gathered all that stuff, putting it together on one formatted sheet is really going to help you kind of back up a little bit and say, okay, yeah, man, this is an area that I want to focus on, or this is an area that I need to focus on, or this is an area I need to stay away from. But pulling it all together is important so that you can visually look at it and determine kind of where you want and need to go. Once you have that analysis all pulled together and it's on this spreadsheet and you can sit back and you can look at it, now you can start to compare your first step of where your features are and what your unique value propositions are and how in your target markets, and you can start to see where you're going to compare, how you can compare on features, on pricing, on positioning against your competition, and it'll really start to help you identify those unique selling points that you can be able to offer and start to fill those gaps in the market that you've identified with your competition. Once you've been able to do that and you've pulled all of it together and you start comparing it to what your features and what your benefits are and how you're going to go to market, now you can start making some strategic decisions based on that competitive analysis and identifying those strategic opportunities in those areas to determine how you're going to leverage your product's strength and how you're going to mitigate some of those weaknesses that you may have to turn them into benefits. You're always going to be able to develop those weaknesses into strengths, And once you have that competitive analysis and you've been able to see where those market gaps are and how you've been able to size up against them, you'll be able to make some strategic decisions on how you're going to go to market and where that product ultimately is going to live. And it's going to help you kind of plan that differentiation and how you're going to offer and capture the market share that you want to capture, that you've identified initially, to be able to really go and be strategic in the way that you are going to market with your product and with your, ultimately with your brand. You know, the competitive analysis is one component to the overall big grand scheme of things, but it's important to dive into these details. And what I dive into these details with my clients all the time and walking them through these step-by-step areas that really helps them focus and understand and asking the questions to help them ultimately become better businesses, bigger brands, more effective products. And so that's what I'm doing, and what I love the feedback from you. Keep that coming. If you have questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask. But we're going to do little things like this all throughout the year and the coming months to be able to help you be a more effective business person and ultimately to be able to bring innovative new product to the market. God bless. And again, reach out to me if you have any other questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Take care.